Broadcast Amsterdam.
It's the Wednesday edition of Damn Daily with Geli and Margaret down the line, and we are talking about Middlebare schools.
Good morning, Geli.
Good morning, Margaret. Hello,
Hi.
How are you?
I'm grand.
Good.
So I thought today we'd talk about, so the series is going to be around 4 to 5 weeks.
Oh,
so
right, great.
Around 45 minutes every week. In our show, discussing, this process.
Yeah.
So today, then, I thought we'd start with the Advies. So because that's kind of you have to have a starting point, and you can only know what kind of school you're going to once you get your Advies.
Yeah.
But so the Advies basically is it's an advice that is given to the child at the around the end of January, beginning of February. To the child from their teacher or group of teachers in their school, the teachers who are in the last couple of years of the school, and the teachers discuss each child individually. They have kind of a roundtable meeting, and they decide what kind of advice they're going to give the child. And the advice means what type of education you can go on to in secondary school.
So what format does the advice take? Is it just written paragraph, or is it kind of statistics, or is it a mixture?
So I'll go through literally you have a meeting with the teacher, you and your child, and they hand you over a piece, because I've done this twice before, and they hand you over a document, basically, which, the school heading is on it, and they talk about a little bit about the advice, explain what it is, and then at the bottom of it, you'll see whatever advice your child is going to get. And that's your formal piece of paper that you will present to your number one school, your favourite school.
Right.
I'm talking from the point of view of the child here.
Yeah.
Whatever child. So when the child goes to register for their number one school, that's the piece of paper they have to present, along with other documents like passport or whatever.
Right.
So you hang on to that for dear life. But so how the teachers get to the point of the advice? How do they? So they look at the academic record of the child. That's one aspect of it. So they have a system here called Leung system, LVS, and generally that is where they track the child's academic development over from group 6, 7, and 8. So they're the years they kind of look at, particularly 7 and 8. I think they're the years that they look at to see how the child is doing academically.
Yeah.
And within those years, there are 2 points, usually in November and usually around May, June, where they assess the child using there's state tests. It's done within the school, but the teachers administer it. They're called cetotudes. That's kind of the colloquial name for them, but they can be administered. They can use tests by other organisations that are registered with the government. But so anyway, we're going to call them cetotudes just to make it easier for everybody. So then they track that the kids over the last few years of primary school, and then they use that in their assessment procedure. So then they also look at the child's development, like kind of personal development over the few years. They look at their motivation in school, how interested they are kind of in their work, how engaged they are, how much work, if they want challenging work, if they're seeking out extra work. They look at their werkhouding, which is it's kind of like also how do they get stuck into their work, how...
Right.
The rate of the pace of work that they do, if they're able to kind of work at a faster pace, or if they need more time to process, and it's a little bit of a slower process, and if they need more thinking. And they look at, I suppose, how deep the child can kind of understand the concepts, the different kinds of concepts at the level there that the child would be at.
Yeah, wow. So really in depth.
It is. Yeah.
But what about the fact that, kids do develop at different rates, and this is sort of presenting, it seems to me it's trying to present a kind of, a very complete picture, but almost like a frozen picture, that it's not necessarily allowing for the fact that, at age 11, isn't necessarily a full reflection of what that child is going to become in years to come. Or is it? I mean, I don't...
No, you're right. You're exactly right. So like this process is also a little bit contentious. It's not that everybody thinks, yay, this is the way to do it, and this is the best system in the world. Some people really like it, and then other parents are more, they're not so happy about it. And children, I'm sure, as well.
Because there's a danger of pigeonholing at too young an age, I think.
You see, on the face of it, that's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
But in fact, the Netherlands has also their system of secondary school programs is kind of, I don't know, it's not exactly unique. I mean, there are other countries who have a similar kind of similar programs like Belgium and Germany, Switzerland, I believe. So it's not that once you get your Advies, that's it for the rest of your life. But lots of people kind of, I suppose a lot of expats or internationals kind of, get a bit scared of it, and they think, oh my God, so whatever level my kid gets, that's it. She's going to be stuck there forever, and she can't go to university, and she can't do this, and she get a crappy job or whatever. It's not actually like that, because in the secondary school system, there are lots of ways to move up and move down. They have so many different kinds of programs. So the Advies that you get is where you start in secondary school. That's the type of education you would start at.
Yeah.
But, for example, 35% of children 3 years after they start secondary school are at a higher level.
Oh, wow.
So they don't, like 1/3 of kids don't stay at the level that they begin with.
Right.
There's so many different aspects to this. Okay, so I'll go on to that in one sec. But look, basically the Advies, when you get the Advies, it should be around the end of January. But the latest time that parents will get it this year and kids is the 12th of February. So that's the very last day that you will get the Advies. Most schools are trying to hand out the Advies to the parents and kids by the end of January. Our school is definitely trying to do that. The other thing is, some parents wonder, do they have any input into the Advies? And the answer really is no.
Okay.
So...
It's a tough lesson for some parents, I'm sure.
Yeah, it can be a bitter pill to swallow. Especially if you come from an overseas system where you don't do this kind of differentiation at the age of 11 or 12. Like in Ireland, everybody just moves on, and it's only later around age 15 that you start picking your honour subjects and your regular subjects and all of that kind of thing. So it comes later. So you don't have any input. I mean, you can give your point of view, all right, but at the end of the day, the teacher has the final say, and it's an immovable object, like a piece of paper that you get. That's basically
not open to bribery.
No, well, no, I don't think so.
Of course not. No,
I think the Dutch are pretty honest about that. So no. I think you get a side eye, all right, if you try something like that.
I'm thinking more about the parents who try anything sometimes.
Oh, I know. Well, in saying that, there have been court cases. So
really?
And by Dutch parents as well. So I'm not implying that everybody just goes, oh, thank you for that, and off they go, smiling into the sunset either. That doesn't necessarily happen.
No, I can imagine.
Yeah, and there are tears. There are tears with kids coming down the stairs with their Advies and upset-looking people coming down, so... It's kind of a stressful period, I suppose.
Yes.
It is. It's not nice either if you don't get the Advies that you want.
Yeah, sure.
But no, anyway, the parents don't have any input. But it can change, because in the middle of April there is an Eindtoets, so that's like the end test happens. So there is another testing kind of
stage
event or whatever.
Yeah.
So so that happens in the middle of April.
Yeah.
So depending on the result of the Eindtoets, if the Eindtoets shows that the child is at a higher level, because it is a points sort of system as well, then the Advies can be raised. So say, for example, the child gets HAVO Advies in 2 weeks' time, and then their Eindtoets shows maybe 545 points or something like that. And that traditionally used to be the cutoff point. If you got 545, then you get a VWO Advies. So if it shows that, then it doesn't automatically increase, and the parents and the teachers have a discussion. That's kind of when the discussion can happen.
Right.
And then the parents can ask for the higher Advies. And generally, I think the school will agree to that. If if it shows that the result is higher, then they'll go with it.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is the Middlebare school places have already been given out.
Uh-huh.
So then you're left with maybe you're not going to get probably the school that you wanted in the first place.
Sure.
So that's a bit tricky, and it's not great the way that whole thing, I think anyway, is set up. Okay. So that's the Advies.
Yeah.
And we're all kind of on tenterhooks then, waiting for that in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah. Broadcast Amsterdam. All right, so we've talked about the Advies and the importance of it, and now what happens? It's kind of funny,
actually. It's called an Advies. It kind of, it gives the impression that it's only an advice, but it's really not.
It's really not.
It should be something else.
It's really quite firm.
An immovable object.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, but now you're going to explain to us the sort of the next stage. What happens at that Middlebare level?
Yeah. So there are 3 levels of education, 3 types of education. Within each type, there are sort of subdivisions. Bear with me, because I'm going to kind of go through it, because I think if parents are listening, they would be interested if they don't know about this.
Yeah.
One level is broadly called the VMBO level, and within that you have VMBO B.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one advice you can get. You can get an Advies, then it's called a double Advies. It's VMBO B/K.
Okay.
Then you can get a VMBO K on its own. Then you can get a VMBO T on its own, and then you can get another double Advies called VMBO T/HAVO. And that one brings you into, it's going towards the middle type of education, which is HAVO. So HAVO education is the middle. And then you have HAVO/VVO, and then you have VVO Advies.
Wow, okay.
So
pretty sophisticated.
Kind of the easiest way, I suppose, to kind of describe it is the VVO Advies is a pre-university advice. So that it leads you into a pre-university education. So that VVO diploma, if you get it, and it's a 6-year program. So if you have a VVO diploma, you can pretty much get into any university in the Netherlands, a research university. Here they have 2 kind of types of university as well. They have a research university, which would be the likes of, say, the VU in Amsterdam and the UvA, the University van Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So they are the 2 research universities in Amsterdam, and Leiden University and Utrecht University. Those schools. Delft Technology, University of Technology. And then you have Hogeschool, which they are universities of applied science.
Right.
So to go directly into a University of Applied Science, you must have at least a HAVO diploma.
Yeah.
Okay? The middle one, if you like.
Yeah.
So the VVO is, like I said, it's pre-university track. And then the HAVO, if you have that diploma, you get into a Hogeschool, the University of Applied Science.
Okay.
And then the VMBO so the HAVO, sorry, I wanted to say about that. It's like a general secondary education. So it's general. Okay. Whereas the VVO is more academic. It's definitely more academic. And deeper concepts, and you have to have, like, say, a higher level of language. You really have to have a really good academic sort of level of language to be able to manage a VVO program, because it's a very broad education, but it also goes quite deep into each subject. So then the HAVO is a general education. It's not as deep, if you like, as the VVO, but they do pretty much the same subjects, but the program is 1 year less. It's a 5-year program.
Right.
And then the VMBO programs, depending now, obviously, because they're within that, that's the most subsected kind of. Yeah,
I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be kind of more for kids who are who would like a more hands-on practical training. Now, I don't just mean like apprenticeships. That's part of it also. You can, like, one of those VMBO tracks would kind of guide you towards and give you training, say in carpentry or whatever like that, in a practical training, plumbing and whatever.
Yeah.
But also the different levels all offer different kinds of things. So, for example, to just give you an idea, like with a HAVO diploma, if you do your HAVO diploma and go to college, you would be like training to be a teacher. Teacher, nurse, maybe I think physiotherapist, those kinds of trainings. And then the VVO would be more, I don't know, like if you wanted to be a university lecturer, if you wanted to study architecture. It's possible, actually, you can do architecture with HAVO. There's just so many different variations.
Yeah.
If you want to study medicine, you need a VVO diploma, that kind of thing. So, but the other thing is you can move between these levels as you go through your secondary schooling. So if you do well, for example, after 2 years and you look like in school that you're doing really well and that you can handle, for example, HAVO diploma, you will be moved up. If your grades, if you're getting great grades in your VMBO, and if you want to, it's not like everybody doesn't want to move up, if you like. So if you want to do it and your grades are good, then you can... you have to, first of all, actually, you have to get your VMBO diploma, and that's a 4-year diploma. And then if you want to switch to HAVO, then you can move into the 3rd year of the HAVO program.
All right. Okay.
Right. So you kind of might lose. It's not really losing a year. You just have to go. You can't go into the final year of the HAVO. You go into the previous one. And the same if you have a HAVO diploma, which it takes 5 years.
Yeah.
If you pass all your exams and you have a good HAVO diploma, actually, you used to have to be able to maybe get 7s or 8s in order to go to the VVO with your HAVO diploma. But now you just have to have your HAVO diploma after 5 years, and then you can go into the 5th year of the VVO diploma. So there's loads of ways of moving if you want to, if you show that you want it, and if you want it. If you're a motivated student, you can move up.
Well, that's fantastic, isn't it? That they sort of allow for, like my query earlier, which is kids developing at different ages or getting their motivation kicking in at a different age. So the system does...
made it a little bit easier the last couple of years because like I just mentioned there, if you have, before, for example, I think if you wanted to move to VVO with your HAVO diploma, you have to have maybe a 7 average or something, which is quite high.
Yes.
But now it's just if you have your diploma. And so a pass in any of these is 6.
Right.
So if you have your diploma, you can move on up to the next level, basically.
Yeah. So that's
is
good.
Set in stone. There are lots of options within the Netherlands as well. Even though initially it sounds like really kind of scary, especially maybe to international parents who come from different systems. It sounds like your child's future. And I read this a lot as well, and I kind of hear it as well from people. And you think that and I would have been probably thinking this when I moved here a couple of, 8 years ago when my son was 9, 10. And I was thinking, oh my God, that's it. He'll never get to go to university. I mean, I know now he wants to go, but back then I didn't even know if he wanted to go anyway. It's just you have these things in your head, don't you? You have your own. Yeah. Whereas now I know that you can move. It's definitely, there's a lot of flexibility built into the system, and it really is built in. Like it's very organized.
So it really is. Yeah, I mean, it actually sounds like you say that from that first initial impression that you get when you first hear about it, but it sounds quite different, and it actually sounds much more pupil oriented than, for example, the UK system, which is just everyone just kind of gets shoved into the same school at the same age. There is a little bit of streaming that comes in, like you said earlier, at around age 14 to 15, but it's not particularly sophisticated, or certainly not to the degree that it sounds like it is here. So actually, it seems to be very tailored for the students, which can only be a good thing, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I do agree, actually. And the other thing just to say is that to just give you sort of an idea about how it goes through society. Nationally, around 55% of people have a VMBO diploma of one sort or another.
Right.
Okay, so 50. So that's
pretty high.
The average. That's the average. The average Dutch person has a VMBO diploma. And then I think, let me think the figures. Nationally, I think it's 20 approximately 20% of people have a VWO diploma, and then the rest have. So now you can do the figures.
Yeah. So that leaves around 30%, 25 to 30%. Sorry, that fall into the.
I think a little bit more have a HAVO diploma.
Yeah.
So I think it's 15 to 20% have VWO.
Yeah.
And then maybe 25% have a HAVO diploma, and then around 55%, this is nationally, 55% have a VMBO diploma. So, that kind of gives you an idea of where it's at. Those figures are a little bit different in Amsterdam because I suppose Amsterdam has a higher maybe percentage of higher educated people, and that obviously has implications for their children's education as well, which we can talk about. That will come up later in the series. But in Amsterdam last year, I was looking at a government document. Last year, the VWO percentage in Amsterdam was 27%, and HAVO was 28%.
Yeah.
And
so that's,
VMBO was 45%. So
Yeah,
Amsterdam is a
you
little
can
bit
see the split
of an outlier.
there. Yeah.
It has a higher VWO percentage compared to the rest of the country.
Broadcast Amsterdam.
Broadcast Amsterdam, your local radio station, 24/7 and on demand. Or on broadcastamsterdam.nl.